Today in the generally assembled studio, we have State Representative Doyle Heffley. Welcome back to the studio.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And we're going to be talking about property taxes to start off our day. Now, no matter how you look at it right now, in our current system, we have a little bit of economic unrest. We can call it a recession. We can call it an economic downturn. But whatever you call it, the result has been runaway inflation. And that has put a real strain on folks who are living on fixed incomes and have to deal with things like property taxes. Can you talk to us a little bit about the situation that's been going on and what you have done and the state legislature has done to try to address this?
Yeah, well, it's a huge issue, whether I do a town hall meeting, telephone town hall meeting, in person. Last week we were at the fair all week. We had a legislative booth at the fair and some political stuff going on. But pretty much, underlying is a lot of folks asking about property taxes. I live it. My taxes are extremely high, and it is a big concern for me. And it's primarily looking at property taxes. Your local municipalities can leverage your property tax. Your county has a property tax. But the really one that's crushing right now is the school district property taxes. You can analyze a million different reasons why. Unfair funding formulas is why I've always backed to level up funding, try to get more funding into those schools. But at the end of the day, we really want to switch away from collecting property taxes to fund our schools to a more equitable system like a sales tax or a PIT. One of the things that I've always supported is the property tax and rent rebate program. And really, that's one of the victories that we did get this year in this legislative session was that increase. And how it works is if you're a senior citizen or you're on disability, and you can come into our office or you can fill it out on your own as long as you paid your taxes for the prior year. So this year we're in 2023. So if you paid your property tax for 2022, you can qualify for a rebate anywhere from $250 up to $650. Now this year we've expanded the eligibility. It was $35,000 per household, and that takes into account half of the Social Security. So now we put that up to $45,000. So that's going to make more eligible senior citizens and people on disability. And it's a property tax and rent rebate. So if you pay your property taxes through your rent, if you're a renter, or if you're a homeowner, as long as you paid those taxes, you get and you meet those thresholds, you'll be able to qualify. And this is going to expand that relief to a lot more folks. We need to do a lot more, but this was a step in the right direction.
And you said we need to do a lot more. I understand that you were pushing for some amendments to this legislation that would have really expanded it. Now, this is obviously a really good program, but this could have really done a lot more for a lot more people. What would your amendment have done?
So my focus has been on all homeowners to get meaningful, and by meaningful, I mean substantial property tax relief to homeowners own your primary residence. So this year we do have a budget surplus, and we did also had some money that was put aside in the rainy day fund, which I think is a good thing. But taking that budget surplus and instead of just spending it as the governor and my Democratic colleagues wanted to, I wanted to take those dollars and apply them directly so that every single person in the Commonwealth that owns a home and pays property taxes would have received $1,000 rebate back. And this would have been on top of the property tax rebate. That's a different program. This would have been additional $1,000 back up to 50%. So if your property taxes are $500, you would have got $250 back. There's not too many people in my area that are paying $500 in property taxes. But this would have been up to $1,000, and we could have built upon it year in and year out. We had a cost on that. We had everything through the fiscal office done. We could have paid for it. We could have got it done. It lost by one vote on the House floor. The Democrats, they actually didn't even allow it to come up for a vote. They blocked it through a procedural process and said it was out of order, instead of just allowing the representatives on both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, to vote for up to $1,000. It would have been this year. It would have been directly. In the past, governors wanted to do stimuluses, like Governor Wolf wanted to do a stimulus for this wage earner. This is giving money directly back to the working people that are paying property taxes. Senior citizens that pay property taxes, working families that live in their home pay property taxes. And just disappointed that Leader Bradford from Montgomery County didn't allow this to come up for vote on the floor.
And you said it wouldn't come up for a vote, but you did say it had money. Money wasn't an issue here.
Yeah.
What do you think stood in the way? Did it have to do with the lack of property owners being a primary constituency in the Democrat-run cities? Is it more is it cutouts that they already have special setups there?
I quite honestly, I don't really know. I never got a full explanation. What I can tell you is right now the finances were there. People say, well, I actually introduced similar legislation last session. And the reason why now is the opportunity because we had the budget surplus. And to just take that surplus and spend it instead of saying, hey, we're going to start this shift. We have to start moving the burden away from property owners, and this would have been a major step in that direction, and we could have built upon it every year out. So it would have been 50% up to $1,000. We could have extended that as those surpluses come in. Instead, you look at an economic stimulus. Giving every homeowner a $1,000 rebate on their property taxes would have been a huge economic stimulus. You talk about inflation, whether it be the cost of heating fuel or anything else, this would have been direct dollars back into the homeowners.
And for the longest time, we've been debating how we deal with property taxes. And probably the biggest sticking point has been an immediate change away. An immediate shift to stop taking property taxes and fund it some other way would be such a seismic shift in the way we do things. Yeah. It's just unattainable. Yours would have been one more step. It is actually something that actually could have gotten things done.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm okay for flipping a switch and shifting in day one from property taxes to a sales tax or a PIT. That hasn't been able to happen. We've had several votes on it. We've never been able to get that across the finish line. I'm for just keep chipping away. Let's get it done. Let's you get 3 yards on first down. You go for 7 yards on second down. And you keep going until you score. And that's the approach that we have to take, an all-in approach. And if you look at a lot of the different things that I've sponsored, increasing the rebate program, enhancing up to $1,000 for every homeowner. And this isn't an income threshold. This is every homeowner. This is people that pay taxes because of their primary residence. This isn't for businesses. This isn't for second homes or rentals. This is for your primary residence on your home. And I'm just disappointed that we got so close, one vote away at a time when we had the dollars to make it happen.
Are you reintroducing this as a bill?
Oh, it's a bill. It's introduced. We got it in. We filed it as an amendment, so it is a bill. It has been introduced, and we also have an amendment, a constitutional amendment, to address the issue of spot assessments, or primarily, really, when you do reassessments countywide. And what happens in that time is you may have folks that lived in their home 20, 30 years, 10 years, and maybe around them, the whole neighborhood developed and blew up, and now they got $1 million homes all around them. They're living in the little house that they raised their family in. Along comes the county or the school board, and right now we have a lot of school districts that are putting for the reassessment, and it's a backdoor tax increase. Call it what it is. It's a tax increase. And this amendment would allow them to protect those long-term homeowners because if somebody comes in and buys up a lot of properties and it now becomes a tourist area, well, why should we punish that? You could have a person that pays maybe $2,500 or $1,000 a year property taxes on a fixed income, 80 years old, and their taxes could go up over 10 grand or 12 grand in a single year, and there's no cap on a reassessment how high those taxes are going to go up. So my legislation would allow for every county to opt in to give like if you lived in your home for 10 years, to give them an exemption for those types of reassessments. Listen, the property tax system is not fair, not at all. I despise it. I'll never vote to support it, and I want to overturn it. But in order to do that, we need to take every step and every approach. And I have a lot of my colleagues that support me. But right now, when we have the resources, we have a majority in the House which is holding these programs up, and it's disheartening.
Small businesses that are being run out of your houses, that is Airbnb, Vrbo, these people who are renting homes.
It's a whole new industry that has really just exploded, and COVID has really just blown that industry up, and we're seeing it all across the nation. It really has heavily impacted Carbon County that I represent and the whole Pocono area. I mean, I think we're always looking for new businesses and new energy and a different business model, and they certainly have captured that. With every new business comes opportunities, and that's kind of what I have some legislation to address a lot of the feedback that I've heard from folks in my area, and also in talking to some of the short-term rental homeowners, and also the people that live next to them.
And this is obviously a problem for some people who might live in a community where the house next to them gets bought, and suddenly it is no longer a residential property. It is lack of a better term, it's a party house.
Yeah.
You got different people coming in every day, throwing all kinds of get-togethers at all times of the night. Who knows what's going on?
Yeah.
There needs to be some rules for this.
Yeah, and really, not wanting to stifle free enterprise, but at the same time, we have zoning ordinances and zoning areas in a community for a reason. People want to live. If people want to live in a business district, they can move into a business district. If people want to live in a residential area, they want to move into a residential area. So basically, what my legislation aims to do is just put some guide rails so that we don't have these conflicts, because my office hears about them. I experience them myself personally. So basically, this legislation would say that as long as everything is permitted, everything is zoned. If the short-term rental, the business owner has all the permits from your local municipality and isn't in violation of anything, you have to have your building, your high occupancy permit, everything has to be up to code, and you have to be permitted by that municipality or township to open that kind of business. Then you can be listed on those platforms, and that's it, to be listed on those platforms as a short-term rental. A short-term rental is anything under 30 days. And then on top of that, the second provision that I put in, and this is from strictly hearing from folks in the community, is you have party homes where people come in and they rent them. Maybe 2 or 3 days a week, somebody comes in, it's a family, they're going skiing or they're going fishing, whatever. They're loving the outdoors in Carbon County, and we welcome that. But say it's people that are coming in to just have a party. And say they come in Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night, and you got a group party, and then they leave Wednesday night, and then you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you got another group. And it becomes almost like a nuisance house, similar to what the nuisance bars used to be. And we have legislation that deals with that, but laws on the book. So this would create like a state entity, so that if a neighbor has a complaint, and they file that complaint, it gives them somewhere to file the complaint with. Right now, they go to the township. If the township or municipality doesn't have a local police department, they can't enforce those laws or ordinances. The zoning officer can eventually come out and put them out of business, but a lot of times they still rent. This would allow for a statewide entity. It would have to be proven through a judicial system. It's not going to be just finger pointing and shutting things down. But if it's proven and it's backed up, then the entity that's listing would have to delist those properties. So it would create a way for the owners of these properties to force them to be responsible, or else they're going to be delisted on these platforms.
And we're not speaking about, really, here in this situation, the mom and pop who want to rent their house while they go away on vacation for 1 week a year. We're talking about folks who buy a house to purely use it as a rental property, to purely run it as a business. Mm-hmm. If you're going to run it as a business, you ought to have the guidelines that a business has.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that have to be in place. You should have smoke detectors. You should have a sprinkler system. There's things we want to make sure that those people are safe, but also making sure they're protecting the integrity of those communities. People that live in a certain area, maybe their taxes are higher. We, talk about property tax. Maybe their taxes are higher because they live in an area that's more residential. That's where they want to raise their family. And just to provide that if people are coming in and operating these businesses in there, that they're going to be zoned, they're going to be permitted to be able to legally do that. And then if there is an issue, that the homeowner next door has some recourse to go back, because you should be able to sleep at night. You should be able to, live in a safe community, and this is going to kind of put those guide rails on. Well, at the same time, I also understand and appreciate the benefit that these businesses have to communities. If you're talking about addressing blight in communities, these people are making those investments in those properties, fixing them up. If you're talking about a tax base, these short-term rental properties, they are paying taxes to the local school district and the local municipality, and a lot of times they're not reliant on the services in the school because they don't have children in there. And it brings up property values. So there are some good aspects that these businesses do, but there also just needs to be some safeguards for those homeowners that are dealing with it.
It seems like the two topics that we talked about here really tie together in that we're dealing with trying to protect the older folks in their communities with property tax laws, and then trying to also protect and make sure the communities are vibrant, that the communities have life, that they're still growing, and that everyone really works together well and lives together well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. Just having some things in place so people can live responsibly. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I support small enterprise. I support businesses, but I also support the rule of law and public safety and people. I support families and people want to live in communities and raise their families. So I think there has to be that balance, right? And when I'm talking to a lot of the owners and they've come in to see me, the folks that own the short-term rentals, as soon as they drop the legislation, and they had their concerns. And then I've also talked to a lot of people that have concerns with these in the community, and we're trying to strike that balance to protect those homeowners, protect those communities, while at the same time, tourism's the number one industry in Carbon County. That in healthcare, now that we have 2 awesome hospitals, but just in that, making sure that we're gonna grow in a way that's going to be responsible and protect our communities.
Protecting the communities is very important, and really one of the problems here that I guess is one of the origins of this is a issue with policing, in that local police and state police have different responsibilities.
Yes.
Can you go into what the state police are and are not supposed to be doing when they're policing a local community?
Yeah, and so a lot of communities throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania do not have local police departments. If they do, maybe they have a part-time officer or a part-time office, so they rely heavily on state police for coverage. State police do not do community policing. Like, they don't drive like your community, like your neighborhood police will drive through the area. They'll work with the businesses. State police, they have a much broader scope. They enforce state laws. They enforce highway safety regulations. They investigate homicide or anything like that. But if you pass a local noise ordinance, the state police do not have the jurisdiction to go out and ticket somebody because, Joe Township, pass a noise ordinance. That has to be enforced at the local level. The only way the state police do that is through the LCB, and that's if somebody has a liquor license. So if you have a community policing, they can go out and do it. They also have code enforcement. So you have your code enforcement and your zoning officers, which can go out and enforce those. But they can just slap a sticker on the door and say you have a hearing. But
that does no good to a rental property.
No. So, and that's why my legislation would address that and set up this entity for homeowners that have a grievance to go and file that grievance, while at the same time it has protections for the short-term rental that it has to be proven. You can't just say this without proving it. So I think we're trying to strike a balance, but to give some protections to those communities.
Good for the business, good for the homeowner.
Yes.